All right. Hello, everyone.
I could totally do that.
Could you? Regardless of whether or not Kale has the video editing skills to make that video, we are the Mineclash Podcast. Welcome to episode 69. We're joined by all of the people from NC Dot and Yars Revenge. What are we calling this episode?
Well, I wanted to call it the NC Dot counterculture, but then someone said, oh, they don't really have a counterculture. But I kind of feel that they do in a way because they do things differently than what most folks do. So I'm going to go with that.
What do you mean counterculture?
I think it's, it's counter to the culture of other people's. I don't know, you guys kind of do things differently.
I'm going to take offense to that.
No, I thought it was a good thing.
Oh, sure.
Sounded like you raised your hand. That was great.
So, anywho's, yes, this is Mineclash Podcast, episode number 69 in humble memory of Lucian James. Yeah, we got a lot of folks here from NC Dot. You guys, I guess we can start with some intros.
I just have to say that I just opened your beer that you sent me, and
yes,
all of the carbonation came out at once.
No, did you let it sit like standing up before you? I mean, because it was shipping in, a sideways manner for a while.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Speaking of beer, who was the NC guy that bought beer for everybody at FanFest? Is that a smell, I think?
A baller.
I got credit for it, but it was actually one of my members who bought it all. A guy named Drunken One.
That's him. That cost him a pretty penny, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a few dollars. The hardest part was convincing CCP that it was legit.
I think they had a crate when they moved it in.
Yeah, he was pretty excited.
Oh, so I'm sad to hear that, Merdud. Hopefully not all of them pop out. I mean, you're still able to get some out of there?
I mean, I drank all the foam. It's going to be a burpee night now.
Hey, foam is where it's at. So for those of you who didn't know, I sent Merdud a nice little care package a few weeks ago containing some of my home brew, so he finally has the pleasure of drinking some of that, maybe. Drinking foam, I don't know.
I'll get to the beer part. Anyways, let's start with our long list of guests here. I have overloaded the overlay. I might squeeze some more people on here, but let's just start at the top with Yars Revenge.
Hello.
Who are you? What do you do? Who do you fly with?
Okay, I fly with Panic Attack. We're a low-sec PvP alliance. I've only been with them for a couple months, and so far, I've got to say, absolutely loving it. But the main thing I do is I host the Panic Podcast, which is a podcast aimed towards low-sec and things generally going on in the game, and hopefully some amusing stuff to listen to.
Can confirm, amusing. We'll get into that in a second. Beppe?
Yo, I'm Beppe, formerly of CO2. I now fly with Macabre Bodum and NC Dot, and I mostly keep my head down so that nobody realizes I'm not actually good enough to be in here.
Oh, I like MV. Good choice.
I just like Pepe. I don't really like MP.
We'll get into standards later, too. Lady Scarlet.
Hey, I'm Lady. I'm part of NC Leadership, CEO of DICE, and I run our rental groups.
Very legendary player in the game. Next to another legendary player in the meta, Mr. Matterall.
Oh, I am one of Lady Scarlet's minions, and I'm also the host of Talking in Stations and former news director for EN24 and TMC and INN. Now I've taken a position at INN as, I think, just kind of a figurehead. So, yeah, it won't be like it was.
Are you the mittens of INN?
Sort of. I'm the strategic director, or basically just figuring out where to take everything, kind of building the strategy and the branding and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's it. You're out now.
Yep. I figured that would do it.
Breaking news here. All right, Travis.
Hey, I'm Travis. I'm a FC and NC Dot.
Beautiful. White Arrow.
Yep, I am the CEO of Burning Napalm. I tend to clean up Lady and Travis's messes in NC Dot leadership.
I create the most.
They both do their best. But yeah, been around since pretty much the beginning.
Hopefully we'll talk a bit about the beginning. Lots of you guys in the Empires of Eve book, so we'll get to that hopefully. Last but not least, Windjackal.
Yeah, Windjackal, a small gang, Skirmish FC, part of Mamba, one of the newest corps to join NC Dot.
Very good. Well, thank you all very much for coming and joining us tonight. Might be some of your first times checking out the show, but thank you nonetheless for joining us. All right, Caleb.
I just want to point out that I was in CO2 for a good, 6 to 9 months, before it shut down. And I went on, I don't know how many fleets with Lucian James and talked to him and told him about this podcast. And he comes in here into the chat room. And it's like, oh man, Merdud, it's good to see you streaming. I'm like, you Fisa.
I was in CO2 for a long time, and I was there flying with Lucian quite a bit.
I think I love and fear Lucian James.
Fear for your safety, or
man, put him on. He's capable of saying anything.
He's asked.
Go ahead.
He's asked me to rub my nipples mid-show here. We'll see if we work that in anywhere.
Yar.
This is Lucian James. You should definitely, if you get a chance to fly with him, if you can get onto one of his drink, smoke, jump fleets, you got to get in. It's a really good fun time.
Yeah, we did a good one last night. He was giving out money. It was great.
That is legit cool.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So yeah, let's real quickly. You want to scoot through the news? Not that there's a whole terrible amount of the news, but we can scroll on by it.
Yeah, we'll start at the obvious one, which is the CSM Summit has started this week. 4 days of Eve Nerds talking in Reykjavik about high-level game stuff. There was a list of the things they're going to talk about released in the dev blog today. It's most of the things you'd expect. Agency, security, PvE, NPCs, audio, sovereignty, structures, plans, future plans, economy, all the big level, high level stuff you'd expect. Obviously this dev blog has very little, and they are probably going to be leaking out little tiny bits, probably not the daily notes that we expect from previous summits.
No, I wish I could be a fly on the wall over there right now, because between last summit and this one, a lot of saucy stuff has happened. So no telling how that's going right now. Does the judge, does he have like a security detail around him, or?
I don't believe so.
He just wears gauntlets.
Right.
But obviously, next week we'll hopefully cover a little bit of the recap of what comes out of the summit. I expect in a couple months we will get the minutes from that summit.
Yeah.
RIP community team.
Yeah.
This is probably a good chance to remind anyone out there who is planning on running for CSM 13. We expect most people who are going to run to start announcing following the summit, as is apparently the tradition, which I've been learned. So if you're running for CSM 13 and you'd like to come talk to us and to other candidates and have your voice on air to the hundreds of people who maybe listen to us, please stop by our Discord or poke any of the people who run the show, and we will get you into the place you need to be so you can we can get you on a debate show.
Maybe even the tens of hundreds we might even have. I don't know.
The 5 to 10, yep.
5 to 10 of them. I'm not sure. Yeah, so also, and I'm not really too certain on what the extent of the next little piece of news is, but CCP has been not unveiling. They've been banning people, I'm assuming for bots, for being dirty, nasty little botters.
Yeah, there was a forum post by CCP Falcon mentioning that the CCP security team, CCP Pelagro, has been going aggressively after bots. They've been responding to the not only Eve Reddit hype about bots and the botting nixes that died last week, but also Massively OP had an article about the bots, the Nyx bots that were killed. So it's getting out there into the more outside gaming media, and it could start to affect their reputation. So this is obviously a PR step towards addressing the issue publicly, as security is not always the first thing that's announced CCP dev wise. But they announced that about 1,000 accounts were banned, and that they will be aggressively moving to ban characters who look like they're botting without going flat broke on banning everyone who kind of seems like a bot, because obviously you're going to have a lot of false positives.
Yeah, like when I'm sitting there for hours on end mining the same rock in a freaking Miasmos, yeah, that could be a bot.
Definitely.
Not that I do that, because that'd be silly. But yes, Matterall and other guests, you're more than welcome to input on news. And if you have some more info about other news, speak up.
Well, I don't know if you mentioned it, but this comes on the heels of 9 Nyxes getting tackled and killed in DRF space.
Yes, yes, indeed it does. I'm sure it was all legitimate.
Well, it turned out it was as they were rolling up these Nyxes slowly one at a time over a period of like 30 hours or so, they determined that it was actually the same guy over and over again, and that it was maneuvering like a bot. And that's where this started. A lot of discussion on the Reddit forum or whatever that is, and then that caught the attention of CCP, and then you see news sites pick it up, and then you see CCP running to kind of make sure that gets addressed, which is good. They're fast at turning around and responding to players.
Yeah, but I mean, not to go too deep into it, but is this news? I mean, is this new for EVE? Like, there's been bots the whole time?
Nope.
There's Unholy Rage years ago. There's been
Right.
bots before that, in a sense.
It just seemed like Reddit discovered there were bots all of a sudden in EVE, and it was really surprising to them.
No, I think once mass media picked it up is when they're like, maybe we should do something about this.
Maybe. I don't even know if it was that. Maybe they prepared something anyway. But yeah, I think Reddit pretty much, Reddit is a place with a lot of feelings. And so the people got a chance to get mad at something together. And it's, I don't know, cathartic. But it's been going on forever. It's nothing new.
With the Nyxes, the timing was pretty spectacular, because we actually had Stu Miner himself on the podcast, and we recorded it a couple of days before. And he said, there's this guy who runs 6 Nyxes that we really want to catch someday. We keep seeing him. We just can't catch him. And then literally 2 days later, I see it all over the news of they've just killed 6 or 8 Nyxes.
Yeah, the 9th was on the next day.
Oh, man.
But it's just, it's Nyxes are just another carrier, but bigger, and people have them now, and it pays for itself when you're doing the botting, or not botting, but the ratting and stuff. So I'm with Arrow on this. I just don't think it's that big a deal, but I guess it's blown into something.
Wasn't the map done on the Nyxes? If they were all running 24 hours a day for a month, it would be like 1.3 trillion ISK.
Yeah, but look at the amount that's being generated too, and just put that into ratios and stuff. It's I don't think it's spectacularly new.
I mean, I've been bitter roaming the drone regions, finding 7, 8 systems in a row with rattlesnakes, with characters that have been in the game for, say, 2 years, but only in a certain corp for less than 2 weeks. And they have no kill mails, no loss mails, and they're in rattlesnakes.
Well, I mean, there could be more to that, because I recently went on a little magic carpet ride with King Voodoo, and we were in battleships. What the hell were those were they? But they were all they were smart bombing battleships, and just would warp into a haven, 5 or 6 of these battleships, and just start popping off maybe about 2 minutes worth of smart bombs. Boop, right to the next one. Boop, right to the next one. Boop, right to the next one. So I mean, that could certainly look like a botter, but it was actually 2 people who had multiple characters.
Well, multiple accounts is nothing new. I mean, multiple accounts go back.
So I mean,
way back.
it's certainly, you can, if you looked at it and you're like, holy shit, there's these 6 identical ships going from haven to haven to haven, all at 2-minute intervals.
Anyways, well, I think the fight on bots is probably Reddit's target of the week. We'll see if it lasts. As far as CCP making moves on that, I think everyone agrees that less bots, better game. See, no one disagrees. All right, you want to talk about Spark and Valkyrie?
I don't really want to, but I guess I will. So apparently, according to, well, this is what I got off of the Imperium.news website, but through Spark and Valkyrie, the CCP Red Cape has said that they're going into like a maintenance mode. Not really maintenance mode per se, but they said they're not going to really focus on any updates or features, that they're just going to be focusing on keeping it running, you know? So take that for what it is.
All right. Well, I think this is a good chance to talk about Yar's Revenge's podcast.
Oh, man.
We brought it up last week that you've started the podcast. We got you on here to talk about it. What's your podcast? Where is it? Where can we find it? What are you talking about?
Well, we mainly put it up on YouTube, but I have managed to, thanks to talking to Kyle, I've managed to get it on SoundCloud, and it's now on iTunes as well, I believe. So it's actually now somewhat accessible. We've got an RSS feed, so I think it should be easy for people to listen to. I will drop a link for it in Discord somewhere at some point. But basically, we talk about LowSec, what we do, what happens, any news that's relevant to LowSec. So like we've just talked about citadels and how they're affecting small gang content. Are they too safe? Are they not too safe? You know, sort of how are they affecting the game, and you know, things like that. And really, we're just trying to kind of get people a view on LowSec, because LowSec tends to get swept under the rug quite a lot with EVE, which isn't an issue, but a lot of people tend to go for just nullsec, which, you know, is fine, but a lot of people don't really know much about LowSec, so we're trying to get a bit more information out there.
Now, it's called Panic Attack, right?
The Panic Podcast.
And it's all focused on LowSec. It's not particularly about faction warfare. It's not particularly about piracy. It's about all aspects.
It's about all aspects of life in LowSec. So we will be doing some stuff on faction warfare and LowSec, and kind of sort of, you know, what's involved in that, piracy and LowSec, sort of how do you survive as a pirate, things like that.
And what inspired you to start a podcast? Did you feel like there was not enough LowSec content in the podcast world, or you really wanted to start something for yourself?
Well, there's a lot of videos out there about sort of people doing PvP and LowSec, but there has never really been a big voice out there talking on a regular basis about life in LowSec. There have been video series like Reload's done a fantastic video series about, you know, things about LowSec, but there's not been a predominant voice talking about LowSec on a day-to-day basis, and I think we wanted to really kind of get it out there.
Why do you think nobody talks about LowSec?
It's the main thing we keep hearing is that people think that LowSec is dead for PvP, which is a big misconception. But not a lot of people live in LowSec compared to the vast amount of people that live in nullsec.
So you don't think it's because like the game mechanics are like boring and lame?
There are definitely a lot of mechanics in LowSec that make it not as appealing to live in, but it's sort of you can learn to live around
like
them.
A PvP perspective.
Yeah. But the big issue we have is there are game mechanics that make it quite difficult to live in LowSec and prevent a lot of things from happening. But the trick is finding a way around them. And hopefully CCP will make the changes that will make LowSec a bit more palatable.
Hey, Yar, I just wanted to let you know I did confirm. I looked on my Android app for reading podcasts, and it shows up there. So just type in Panic Podcast. There it is.
Awesome. I can, in fact, do technology. But yeah, the big thing we feel is CCP brings out loads of really awesome updates about life, sort of living in nullsec, living in highsec even, but they very rarely touch lowsec specifically. Like a lot of things that get changed in lowsec are changed as a result of things changing in the rest of the game. And we want to try and push lowsec as a big aspect of EVE. It's as big as the others. Obviously, you don't have the huge Sov wars going on in nullsec, but a lot of people do live in lowsec, and you can get some really good fights in lowsec.
Well, I look forward to you guys talking to the aggressively feeding corp that's living in Dal right now. There's been a lot of hype about their corp on Reddit. Seems like they're very active.
Oh, we look forward to meeting them. I think we roam through Zao quite often, so we should pay them a visit at some point. Have a few good fights.
Here's some info leaks. They fly thrashers.
Oh, thrashers! In fact, I think I lost a Magus to a bunch of thrashers yesterday because I can't reapproach gate. Apparently,
it's quite far. All right. Well, what's your release schedule? How often can we expect shows?
We release a new podcast episode every month on the 20th, and then we also chuck videos up kind of as we do them around it. So I will drop a YouTube link somewhere and an RSS feed link somewhere, and then I guess they'll get put in the right place.
Are you looking for guests, for other contributors from the low-sec community who want to come on and hype their corp, or are you sticking to a set number of hosts?
Oh, no, absolutely. If people want to come on because they've got an opinion they want to make known or they want to discuss something, we are always looking for people to come on. And, you know, sort of, the more guests we can get on, the better.
Great. Well, I'll highly recommend checking out this podcast. You guys definitely have something you can talk about there. There's definitely a lot of content you can talk about. And convince us why we shouldn't be in wormholes or in nullsec, and we should be in lowsec. I look forward to listening to a whole lot of your content.
Well, thank you. Tune in on the 20th, and of course, Panic Attack is recruiting. I was paid to say that. Shameless plug.
I wish I was paid by my recruiters for pushing my corp.
Someday.
One day.
All right, and the last little piece of Eve Onion news is that it has been revealed. This is breaking news. I don't know if anybody else knows this, but it has been confirmed that there is a bot who is running for CSM 13. CCP has found this out, and this player/bot, who will remain anonymous until a full investigation can be launched, seems to be in a good position to win on the CSM. So, future congratulations to that individual.
Is it Aerith's Market Tools?
I mean, it could be. I don't want to say anything yet.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Is it okay to out Eve Onion as an NC member?
Too soon?
Is he really?
Yeah.
Well, dang, look at that. It's all NC tonight.
DICE member.
NC everything. Cool. Well, if you haven't figured it out by now, we have a lot of individuals here from NC Dot, and we want to talk a little bit about what they are, what they aren't, and all that fun stuff. So, Murdod, how should we start this behemoth?
Well, and back in the day, according to Empires of Eve, a time before I ever played this game, we had a group formed called NC Dot. Does anyone want to speak to that history a little bit?
I don't know. White's probably the oldest, so.
Travis, makes me feel better. Yeah, so NC-Dot was, and I'm sorry, my memory's terrible from this far back, but NC-Dot was formed based off of some kind of splinter. Some corps were just kind of kicking around the north. It was kind of a joke. It was a joke before memes were memes, I guess, on the old Northern Coalition. We decided to put a dot at the end of it. So there were about 3 or 4 of us corps at the time that kind of formed together, and then basically spent the first 6-8 months or so just hanging up in the north, shooting the old Northern Coalition, and they went down and shot Bob for a while, which I think they had a different name at the time.
They were
IT Alliance, maybe?
Yeah,
right?
they were IT.
Yeah, sorry.
Huge fights.
Yeah, some good fights with them.
Big pushes back and forth between MC coming and pushing the north and NC moving down south.
Massive dread fights back and forth. I think some supers and even Titans might have gone down, but I remember noting it at the time. It was super impressive.
It's like 2007, right?
I don't remember the dates.
I
Sorry,
know,
Arrow.
years.
But I was just, as somebody who was just watching things, I wasn't in NC at the time. It was like these were colossal fights, way above your pay grade. As you're an Eve player looking at NC from the outside, it was really impressive.
Aussie Willie from chat is claiming to have the first Titan in NC Dot.
Well, he was at MicCorp at the time, so he had one of the Titans we had. I'm not going to give him the first Titan. So basically, I mean, NC Dot was formed like I think in the early, like middle 2010. So we weren't like a part of NC. It was completely different. A lot of the dudes were. There was Doom, which was the initial founding corp. That was an old Tri corp, had been around for a long time. And then a couple of, RA was a big one. MicCorp, Burning Napalm was one of the first ones that joined, which was kind of a merging of a couple of the old Atlas corps. It took all the PvPers from Atlas that didn't want to stay and build crap wherever the hell we were at the time. And so the original goal was basically, it was mainly dudes that didn't want Sov, didn't want to do anything, but we had a bunch of Supers and Titans at the time, which was a lot, and we wanted to just to shoot stuff. That was 100% the goal. There really wasn't any super formal leadership, other than we kind of had Vince, a dude named Super Twinkie, and then a guy named Soho Torres that were kind of the main FCs at the time, and just had a good time. And then we decided to start planting roots everywhere, which is either the good or bad part about Eve. Kind of holds you down.
Yeah, and to clear that up, 2007 was Bob Goon kind of conflict. But what I was talking about was, and what White Arrow was talking about, was that NC Dot was fighting Bob, but Bob at that point had dissolved and was called IT Alliance. And those two, NC Dot and IT Alliance, were the ones fighting in Syndicate, and those were some big brawls.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there is the first kind of teaming up with PL too, right?
Yeah, that probably happened like right around when like Burneden joined, I think.
Yeah, so we decided to go to, I think we went to
X70.
Yeah, possibly. Trying to remember. Yeah, I know we had done some stuff in Providence. We decided to go. We were going to plant our flag in Providence for a little bit, and us and Evoke decided on there, and I think that's about the time Bernine joined.
Yeah, no, because we actually like killed some of your supers with AAA when y'all were in Provi, and then like a month later.
Hold on, pump the brakes. You called like a super. Let's not go that far, Travis.
Yeah, and then like a couple weeks later, I want to say like you guys had moved north and then recruited us to join the alliance, and y'all were I guess we were hitting NC proper pretty hard at the time, and with PL and a couple of other small groups. And
yeah, that was the time. I guess that was when everybody started kind of going from doing the first kind of big anti-NC campaign. Who were the kind of the goons before goons, I guess, is maybe the way I would look at it. The goons like the nowadays.
The Empire Sitters.
Yeah, I mean, so that all happened, right? So we essentially evicted them probably pretty quickly. Like they didn't really put up any major fights that I recall. At least, with Capitals, like they I mean, there's some decent subcap fights, but there's never really any good like capital brawls. I mean, but we were obviously like they just never chose to field them. I mean, that was at the time in the game where like if we wanted to drop Titans, it was probably like 15 to 20 was a lot, whereas now that's really nothing. But yeah, so we evicted them, and then let's see, we tried to evict goons, and that went poorly. And then we discovered this stuff called Technetium, right? Which is super cool. It used to be worth like lots and lots of ISK. So we basically just like threw up a nip with everybody and took all of Tribute and like most of, I guess, is it not Pureblind? What is it? Pureblind? What's the region X70's in? One of those regions, like Venal, yeah, like NPC, some NPC space up there. And like we pretty much just like sat on moons for a while. And like that was NC Dot. We just go like do random deployments versus like Russians, and then we decided to shoot goons, and they kicked us out.
Yeah, they you guys actually NC actually kicked out Providence and actually took over the place. The only time they've been interrupted in Sov, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. They may have, I mean, bits and pieces before, but yeah, we pretty much decided to go there and just. Again, we didn't really have any reason other than just to take it to why not? See if we could do it.
mean, it's obviously easy to take back in the day, right? I mean, it was just grinding stations, right? But if you had supers, like, it was so easy. Whereas now, like, you can't really, like, it's not like the game is not like terribly fun to play for anybody in 0-0 for the most part.
Well, when you took Pravi, you gave part of it to Ewoks, right?
Yeah, which is Evoke, which was their kind of I don't want to call it rental group, but their kind of PvE group,
okay.
I guess. Yeah.
Because when you were menacing Northern Coalition proper, you were teamed up with Evoke and Dead Terrorists too. When you guys were skirmishing up there in the north. So when you came down, Evoke, I guess, stuck with you when you took over Providence. And that was when those big fights happened. You guys were coming down Fountain on your way to Providence. That's when you ran into IT Alliance and fought a few fights there.
Yeah, sounds pretty much. I mean, like we were so at the time when Incident was first formed, it was obviously a lot fewer dudes than it is now, and it was pretty specific time zone. It was mostly much later EU time zone and US time zone. So we didn't have any kind of earlier EU time zone, which is kind of how we got to be really good buds with Evoke, because they were all kind of earlier EU, German dudes.
Yeah, and then when you guys were in Tribute, you guys were part of OTEC, and you owned Moons and Venal too, as Travis was just saying.
Yeah,
and that was
unfortunately money. The call of money in this game is pretty strong, and it will tie you down quicker than getting married.
And that was a period of financial growth for NC. Right? You guys definitely evolved up into more and more supers.
Oh yeah, like when we started, like I was in Berniden, and we were probably the most heavy super capital corp in the Alliance, at least that like actively fielded them for a little while. But like it very quickly, like all other corps were just like buying dude supers. Like if people were just making, I mean, you just made stupid amounts of ISK, right? Not only like on the Alliance level, but on the corp level. So anybody that really wanted a super during that time period was able to get one. Like if you were a super active dude in NC Dot, you pretty much got a super. I want to say like White might be able to correct me. I want to say we were giving away probably 3 to 4 Titans a month for probably close to a year, I would say. Right, and then if some other dude wanted a super, then we'd just be like, here's a super, go have fun.
Right, we were building really cheap at the time, so it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to explain the amount of money that the corps and just the alliances at that point were making off of OTEC or the Technetium Moon. I mean, it's to the point where, and I know Travis can attest to it, like I still have money left over from that time in Eve, which was like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Yeah, I mean, like so does, I mean, honestly, like outside of like until B-R happened, like I mean, like B-R probably happened like what 2 or 3 years after, but like I mean, it was essentially Technetium ISK that paid for our side of B-R, like and then we obviously had like a huge rental empire at that time, but like that ISK lasts forever. Like I mean, yeah, like my corp, like we haven't had to like essentially like sell any Moongu that we just mined, in the 5 years since then for the most part. It's just all been Technetium. Like it was broken as fuck, but there's a couple people that got to take advantage of it, and and they're still somewhere today, right? Like I mean, like the big players for that were really Raiden, NC Dot, PL, and goons, and right, some goon pets like FCon and whatnot. But I mean,
Test was in there too as part of OTEC anyway.
Were they really?
Yeah, they were.
No, we didn't allow Test to have moons. Like I can, yeah.
It's in the literature. Like they did commercials.
They didn't have any moons up north. They may have had tech moons.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they didn't have moons up north. Like where all the moons were. Like 90% of the moons were. Yeah, I mean they might have had moons, but not in the north. But yeah, I mean that was like a very significant time period that really did allow for all of the growth for NC Dot to essentially become what it is today, because people are just going to naturally be attracted to alliances that just throw money at all of their players, right?
So that was a period when moon mining was isolated to that corp leadership, not like moon mining now. So how much would a single tech moon be making the alliance?
I mean, what were they worth? Were they worth like 20 bill a month? Like, am I remembering incorrectly?
Sounds like, I mean, I want to say like 180, maybe 200k a unit. I feel like that's the number I remember for some reason, but it was a lot. I remember basically just like filling up jump freighters every couple weeks and flying them through high sec, and it would be a couple hundred bill.
And this was before alchemy, where you could modify the moon minerals into different.
Absolutely, it was broken beyond belief, but we had positioned ourselves at the time just to take advantage of it. But that's kind of what, again, when you take a bunch of PvPers and you put them as having a bunch of money, like usually the inevitable happens where we found we're like, well, we've got enough money, let's start shooting stuff again, which is how we ended up getting kicked out of Tribute. So
yeah, but it was still fun at the same time. Like it wasn't the most ideal circumstance, but yeah, I mean it was a fun for the most part war, right? Because like it was still at the point of the game where, you know, a smaller group could throw maybe like a little bit extra ISK or just have like better FCs and actually like make an impact when PvPing, whereas opposed to now it's pretty much just a raw numbers game.
So you guys are ship top heavy, but what's your numbers at that period? Do you guys remember? Like,
I want to say in USTZ we'd probably I don't know like the alliance as a whole, but I'd say USTZ were probably like 50, 60 dudes in a fleet, and that was like, you know, hyping, like that was like, you know, that was like a big op, and then I don't know what Euros, maybe like 120, 140, like a big op.
Sounds about right. I mean, we weren't filling a fleet at the time, but yeah, we'd get, you know, between 100, 150 in EU. And then, yeah, on a big op in US, like Travis was saying, somewhere between 50 and maybe 70, 75.
And we had about a quarter of the corps back then compared to now.
Yeah. Like the corp structure was very different. It was a lot more, like everything was essentially like some like elite PvP alliance, right? Like my corp was like basically like all we ever wanted to do was like fly fucking unprobable battleships, right? But that's broken and got turned off. So like this was pretty much the next best thing, and you know, it was an opportunity to use Supers and Titans. And you had corps like Doom, which was, you know, some of the best players in the alliance and some of the best players in Eve and the best FCs in Eve. And then, right, like, you know, Burning Napalm was essentially like all of the people that wanted to PvP, and you know, you had a couple of other corps that were essentially just like alliances that no longer existed, just merged into, you know, a single corp. And you know, it was just like all PvPers. Like there was no concept of really having like, honestly, like ratting alts for the most part for a lot of people. And it was very, very much PvP focused, right? And it wasn't like, you know, it was also like, you know, like today, like a lot of the players, they just like wait for pings, right? So it was a very different in that regard as well. Like, you know, back in that time, like people were just like constantly logged in. Like if something happened or somebody, like, you know, I had this dude tackled, like they just like actually say in like alliance chat, and like people would swarm there because people actually logged in. Whereas now people would really just like wait for somebody to like ping a strat up on IRC, and then they'll actually like log in. But at the other times, like they're pretty much just like, you know, mining or playing World of Tanks or some dumb other shit.
Yeah, so this is a period of the game where there's still catchable scepters, like there's not interdiction nullified everything, you know, right. Gate camps exist.
To the point, I mean, yeah, exactly. It was a game. I guess the game was just so different. You had to be actively engaged with it a lot more. It was, you know, there really wasn't a whole lot of, and even to the point where there wasn't a whole lot of kind of, okay, we're going to arrange this fight, or we're going to organize this fight with this other group or whatever. Like that just didn't, it wasn't as big of a thing as it maybe is now.
Yeah, the good fight culture.
Right. There was definitely not that. There was a lot of animosity towards other groups, which is probably why one of the reasons why we have such a hate relationship with Goons and the CFC dudes, or, you know, Initiative and some of those other guys, is because that's from so long ago. It's just never really changed. Whereas a lot of dudes now are just kind of happy, and you know, even us, we're happy with some of the other people that we've shot or not shot in the past.
So to move past that OTEC era, there was a lot of push from the development team to like erode the OTEC monopoly. How did you guys lose your space in Tribute in that area?
Well, actually, let me interject here, because CCP Fozzie told me his very first act when he got to be a developer was to destroy OTEC.
Yeah, but
he was very happy about it.
Before that, though, before the end of OTEC, we like I was saying before, you get a bunch of PvP dudes in the same system and the same group, and 90% of us were just done with sitting in a region and only being able to, like you said, camp gates or just do less than impressive stuff, which is kind of what most of the dudes in the alliance wanted to do. So we had some of the old FCs had come back to the game, like Super Twinkie and Soho Torres, and we kind of decided, well, it's boring, so we started shooting each other. So we started shooting goon bosses just to provoke a fight. They provided the fight pretty quickly, and then we had a good maybe month and a half of probably the most fun in Eve I've ever had, before or after, to be honest. Where, like Travis was saying, it was this time back when Eve where before everybody could fly everything. So you had a group of PvPers that we all had a lot of money, so nobody really cared about losses, but we still had the skill point kind of advantage. So you could have 50, 60 guys in one time zone in armor hacks that could easily outfight a full fleet of Drakes or whatever CFC was, or Maelstroms, whatever they were flying at the time. So the game was broken to a point, but it was still Goons and CFC and those guys they just weren't up to the level they are at now, which is why it is so much of a numbers game now.
Yeah, I mean, like back in that day, like the Goons are essentially like what is it? Fraternity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now.
Like, yeah. It's like, yeah, they're like fraternity. So like if you look at fraternities fights, right? Like they fly armor tempests, right? That's not because like they think armor tempests are really good. They fly them because that is like the single unified doctrine that alliance can actually play, which is like pretty much a strict SP limit, right? Like they struggle, like they're just now getting to where they have like T2 Logis, right? Whereas like, way back in, like that was Goons. Like they had Drakes and then they trained into Maelstroms, right? It was pure shield. So like we were a little bit higher SP. So like if they were in Drakes, right, and we could do like Nagas or something and just like set at like 120 and just like murder zone them, or do AHACs and do a decent job as well against like anything they bought anything they brought. So it was just a very different. It was a much more this is why I said it was a much more engaging game that was a lot more fun to play because of how I wouldn't say I would say it's like very much more balanced, because like there was always like if somebody brought this, like there's always like significant changes you would be bringing to like your fleet comp, right? Whereas now, right, they just nobody really like changes anything based off of the enemy fleet. Like we're always gonna fly Macarials, right, because we have Macarials, and Test is always gonna fly Nightmares because that's their battleship doctrine. Like they don't really give a shit what anybody else brings, or it's just simply they chose their battleship, they're gonna stick with it, and like it's just they're gonna engage based off of numbers, right? And that's just the way the game is today.
Well, it's funny you say that. At smaller fleet levels, when you have limited numbers, like you've reached your max rage ping and that's it. You can't rage ping for any more. That's it. You actually have to start modifying your fleet doctrines, and at like the sub 60, 80 man fleet comp, you can still play around with those ship compositions and special teams in order to bring the fight to a larger or a more skilled entity or someone who has more caps than you.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I completely agree, but like
and that's what I'm saying. I guess that's the whole point. Is so at this time in Eve, like there was really only one group that was putting full fleets into the game, and even then, it was at such a level of ships that it could be easily countered by refitting mods and by kind of playing the fitting game a little bit. Whereas now in Eve, for the most part, most heavy hitters in this game are going to put enough people in fleet where it doesn't matter how many hardeners you have, or to stack a certain racial type, you're still going to get killed. Or you just don't take the fight, which is the boring part.
Fair enough. Well, can we take a next step forward? What's the next step for NC after the tribute?
Would it be like the drone lens contract?
Yes. So pretty much after tribute was done, we kind of left the area, and then we started taking some contracts. This is kind of when we started doing a lot more stuff with kind of the modern PL, I guess. So yeah, we took a couple contracts up in drones and cleaned that area out, which was entertaining.
This is a period where, as a member of Goons, newer member of Goons at that time, it felt like NC and PL were like the big scary bad guys. You didn't want them to come to your neighborhood because you were going to get fucked up.
Well, I mean, like you're saying, at this point, you're talking about two groups that had an absolutely insane amount of money, and we had spent the money on the members for the most part. So we had, you know, an obscene number of supers and titans, and dudes that actually knew how to use them and were confident in using them. And especially at that point, supers were so broken because they could field all types of drones that you really couldn't get like you could now. You can't get caught. You just couldn't at that point. So you could pretty much do whatever you wanted, and we could be anywhere in Eve. As the time kind of progressed, and once we started really doing the whole Renner Empire, we can get into that in a minute. But Travis could tell you, I mean, we could be in anywhere in Eve in maybe 5 minutes, if that.
Yeah.
From top to bottom of Eve. So anytime there was any kind of fight, we were going to show up, and if we could get an insider, that was all we ever cared about. That was the hard part for us.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you guys. One of the questions was in regards to DRF and drone regions. So, are you guys now enemies, frenemies, allies? Like, what's the? Because I know the big bad guy right now is DRF. So, what's your guys' stance on them?
We choose to let Lady answer those questions because
I knew that was coming. So
I don't know who I'm friends with anymore, so I'll let her answer.
So officially on paper, they're neutral, and we do shoot each other when nothing's going on. But behind the scenes, they are blue with a lot of our friends down in the drones and stuff. So we do help on occasion.
Yeah, because it's one of those things like we have with Pandemic Horde and Guardians of the Galaxy. Sometimes we're shooting them, and sometimes we're they're helping us shoot other people.
We'll shoot them to a point, I guess, is the bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, like, they leave our stuff alone. We leave their stuff alone. They'll bat phone if they really need something. We might call on them if we really need something. That's rare, but it does happen. Yeah.
Okay, and they've always been that way, pretty much, or has it been tedious in the past at all?
Well, like I said, we took a couple contracts in certain regions, and attitudes change after you've taken a region 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, so like most of our contracts were against Solar, essentially, or I think all of them actually were, right? Yeah. And that was like for me, like that was when I really started to FC a lot. So that was some of the more fun. Like I like to this day, like Solar and its prime, and like during that time period, I would say is like single-handedly like the best alliance that we have ever fought against, right? So they were just a good opponent that like always wanted to fight and like didn't really care about like or like blue ball. Like they always have a good fight, and we eventually beat them pretty much because of numbers. But yeah, I mean that was another really fun time period as well. I mean, which was another like big time period of growth, right? Because we were just getting contracts, and we're able to like once again like just splurge ISK on our members, and like for a very long time, if you flew an NC dot and you lost something, it was covered like 100%. There's a lot of things in NC dot. If you lost it, to give you extra ISK on top of it, like for like Logis and Hectors and stuff. So that was a fun time period, I would say.
Was that triple SRP Logis?
Yeah. Yeah, we did. We like, yeah, for a while we would triple SRP Logis, and then occasionally we would just, if you were in the fleet, if you were in a Logi in the fleet, after we like took the first Titan bridge, we would just like one of us would just log into our holding tune, and we just join the Logi channel and just throw 100 mil at every single person on the Logi channel. It was just dumb. So much ISK was just like just thrown at people. It was crazy.
Yeah, that was a silly period of ISK for a lot of groups. I remember that double SRP for certain ships. Yeah, even in Goons, and we lost ships left, right, and center.
But yeah, man. So I guess the moral story is we did several contracts, and then we kind of decided. I guess it's kind of when the N3 period started. We kind of decided, we need to kind of get back into our roots of having some bros that have a lot of numbers that we can, because numbers were becoming much more of an obvious thing in the game. They had nerfed supers, changed supers around a little bit to where they weren't kind of the end all be all.
Is this before or after jump fatigue and the changes there?
Before.
Way before.
Yeah, thankfully way before. So yeah, I mean, basically, like I said, Titans and supers could 100% defend themselves. We didn't really use anything else. You didn't need carriers and facts, dreads, like all that stuff was kind of pushed to the wayside because they were kind of self-contained, just battering rams anywhere you went.
Yeah.
And they started changing stuff. So they kind of messed with the Titan tracking, and they messed with drones that could be in supers and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, it became much more of a thing where you have to have a support fleet, which gets complicated when the majority of your dudes are double, triple, quad boxing things.
And locked in their characters.
Well, no. Like outside of that, like when he says support, like at that time, support was we just added Archons to our fleet, right?
Right. That was
like
a support fleet.
It wasn't. Yeah, that was our support fleet. We added spider tanking sentry Archons, right? And that was our support fleet, right? It was for additional reps and just be the ability to clear subcaps a lot more easily than super carriers could. But super carriers at that point were still, just because of the ability to power project our super capital fleet was more or less. I mean, it was pretty broken. Like to put it in perspective. Let's see. Let me pull up like the browser in game. We had beacons. Let's see, in range of every single system from, let's see, VY Dash in Cobalt Edge down to the entry to period basis. Or no, sorry, Esoteria. Esoteria. So we could sign up. We had a jump beacon in range of every single system in like that, all of those regions, right? Which is, and then outside of that, like we discovered, there's these things called death clones, right? So we had, a nice little alt corp which allowed us to just death clone anywhere, right? So if we ever wanted to go anywhere, it was literally like there were probably only like, if I was on, or there's a few other people that were on, we could single-handedly move our super cap fleet anywhere in Eve in probably a matter of, let's say 60 seconds a mid that we had to go, and that's being comfortable in the timeline.
Well, this is what led to the nerfs as well for
absolutely
protection.
It 100% is, but it's also hard for it's hard for us to go. You have this instant. In our eyes, it was an instant PvP, instant anything we wanted without having to necessarily move to a certain region and kind of set up shop like you have to now. It was, we could be where we wanted and we could get fights anywhere in Eve, which was great for us. Sucked for the little dudes, which is 100% understandable.
Yeah, so Murdad, as you were saying, they were the big bad guys. It's because they had quick access to wherever you were, and they had win buttons in the super carriers. And even if you caught those at that time, I think you could still log off, so you could get to safety.
Oh, it wasn't like you didn't even have to log off. Like the supers could just spider tank till downtime if you wanted to. Right? There's one time in where was it, White?
We got caught. So we're in Germany. We got caught by AAA.
No, it was Jiminit, wasn't it? It was like I think it was Jiminit. So like we literally I wasn't there for this, but we got caught.
Made bad decisions.
Yeah. So they got caught, and then they extracted everybody but one dude, and then they jumped back in to save like the one super, right? And then they get the dudes clear, and then they extract, and like 4 get left behind. And at that point, like it took them like 3 hours to actually die, like four super spider tanking, but like it was just like not worth like.
Yeah, pretty much. Wow. I mean, we finally it just got to the point where the last dudes, there were like 6 of us that were left. We weren't staying up anymore. It was like a Monday night, which is not ideal to have an all-nighter. So we finally just kind of called it. But yeah, but this was also like a week after they had changed the super drone layout. So all of a sudden we had to use fighters, which was a new thing, and we hadn't quite planned for it as well as we probably should have. So all of a sudden, 300 or 400 AAA and goons and kind of everybody kind of piled on us. But they were easy to tank. It was just finally we just kind of spread out and we got some dudes off a grid and were able to extract them. But it was we chalked up to a learning experience.
Yeah, not to let this sink in anymore for a newer player to the game, but like any lag spike anywhere in the game, which was any good number of capital ships on grid, you could expect some large group to show up with their capital fleet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I mean it's comical, but yeah, you're 100% right. And like I said, it definitely needed to be nerfed. I'm glad it is. I'm glad it was the way it was. I maybe don't love the way the whole jump fatigue stuff is laid out, but it needed to be changed.
Yeah, like for a while, like I played Eve like an absurd amount, right? So like I literally would just I would sit in this game and I would just tab and I would click. I would be like on the star map and I would just click the Sinofield button, And every time I saw a Sino go up, I would just fly like one of my little interceptor Sinowalts there. And if there were caps on grid, we were like you could be guaranteed like we were gonna be there, right? Like it was like the time period. Like if you were not like NCPL, like you knew that if you wanted to drop caps, you had one siege cycle, or like we would be on you. Like we didn't even have to have spies. Like we just saw a Sino go up, and we would just ping dudes to be ready. There's a Sino up. There's probably caps on grid if it's not like some normal jump raider system, and we were going to be there very, very quickly.
Yeah, and from the other perspective, from the F1 pusher perspective, these guys are guaranteed actual fights. There's no false alarms. People are already engaged. There's no blue balls, so you're gonna follow these pings.
Yeah. So it was pretty much instant. It was easy. It was easy mode cap kills. It was EVE on easy mode, which is not ideal for the game. But I also have. We're talking about dudes for the most part that didn't play the game. Like at this stage, most of the guys that were in NCDOT and PL as well are guys that had played EVE from the very beginning or very early, 2004, 2005. So it's kind of like we've all paid our dues. So I don't really feel bad about playing EVE on easy mode at that point because I had played the game for 10 years.
So bot word is established kind of around this period, right?
Yeah. Well, probably a little bit afterwards. Yeah, roughly around the same time. Maybe Travis can go more, but it was more of we had kind of. It wasn't quite everything wasn't under the bot umbrella until
it was N3, right?
Yeah.
It was N3 because PL had bot and we had N3, right? So it was N3 with like us. It was us, Nully, and
Nexus.
Nexus,
Nexus?
yeah.
They were the Brave before Brave was.
Yeah. That's right. So it was Nexus, and then like we just started piling on like pretty much any alliance that could like theoretically like protect like a small area. Like they would get like a small portion of renter income, and they'd be like responsible for like an entire region, right? And so like we just got super bloated. But that would be the same period where we really started to blow up all of that. We lived in, I want to say, LEM and drones, and during that time period, like our main PvP content was probably Russians or some random people in Geminate, and maybe some Great Wildland stuff occasionally. It might.
For EU times, it was definitely Russians. Like I can't really. Solar was like the big bad at that time, and I do miss him being that way.
Solar was great, but yeah. I mean that was the time. Like that was N3, right? It was definitely renters like Tech went away, so we found a new way to make money, right? Not like on the same scale. It was definitely a lot more time intensive, right? Because you have to have somebody like Lady Scarlet that's willing to manage all of it. But it was still a fun time.
Trillion a month. Let me just say.
Yeah.
It was a lot of money.
But it's still nowhere close to like Technetium.
But $2 trillion a month costs you. I mean, you really owned 40% of the map. It was the biggest alliance in the game, far and wide. I think
it became that way. So there was I forget the dude's name who kind of came in and reset. Was it Nully's? Was it Nully's?
It was a Nully leader. Yes, it came in and dropped Sov, and then we took it over. Yeah.
One of like the biggest pain in the asses I've ever had in EVE. Like we had to come in and grind.
Yeah, that's right. Because that was okay. So that was when we were in Fountain, right? And
help it test or whatever.
Yeah, Test was in Fountain, right? Still Fountain, like their home Fountain. Goons decided they wanted Fountain, right? So so we're in Fountain with PL and Black Legion, right? And then we're doing well. Like this is like one of the first times that like we've been consistently beating Goons. Like we're winning this war like on a consistent basis, and then Black Legion gets bought out, right? So they stop. Like they basically just go back to Venal and they're crabbing. I wanted to say they were getting okay. So like basically at that time they got, I want to say, 2 Titans free a month, and then they were getting unlimited build cost supers and Titans, and that was for them to just not interact in that war. And then a couple, like I was in fucking school like one day, and I just remember getting this, like somebody texted me. I was like, well, they dropped Sov. So
by the way, this is during the Fountain War is what Travis is describing.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, the first big Fountain War. Yeah, where like Test got evicted out of their their homeland, I guess you would say. But yeah, so
My
So-
favorite month of Eve
Yeah.
of all time.
It was a blast. It was
that
so
was-
much fun.
it was fun, but it was also like it was frustrating to be like on test side because like you'd have like some. It was at the time where like a corp director could log in and go turn off anybody else's in the alliance SBUs. So we would always have like these defensive SBUs up like in the entire region, and like there'd be like some random fucking test spy that would just log in and make all of our lives miserable for like 3 hours. We'd have to go grind like an entire region's worth of SBUs, and then you know like tests started running into problems where like you know just like every director in the world that had access just started like stealing their stuff, and then like Black Legion had pulled out, and then some dude decided to turn off like our renter empire. So like it was pretty much done at that point because we had to essentially just like extract
Yeah.
all of our supers, and
It
that was
was
our
a-
I-win button,
It
and spent
was the
like
guy
3 days
that,
grinding.
It was the guy that actually founded or is a leader in Snuff, I think, still actively. It was those guys that actually sabotaged Nelly Segundo in the middle of the Fountain War, making all of N3 have to basically pull out and reconquer all the drop Sov.
To be fair, we did it like in 3 days. Which
Yeah,
is
no, we did it in 3
amazing.
days.
Like, I mean, at the end of me, myself, and a couple of the dudes, like we
Yeah, Alex.
grinded. Yeah, it was amazing. It was terrible, but we did it. But unfortunately, by the time we were able to get done with that and then get dudes that are all motivated to go back to Fountain, like Fountain was pretty much done with.
Yeah,
Upsetting.
this was a period where this is Dominion Sov, you could utilize those easy to move super carriers, you could wipe out SBUs or TCUs really quickly with large numbers because there's no damage caps on structures, so a
Thank
large
God.
super blob could just clear a region really quickly undefended.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So,
that
but
was
then we did
that was an amazing period.
It was definitely, again, broken. A lot of it was broken for sure. So
For
I'm
sure.
glad they fixed a lot of.
Yeah, but I feel like all of this time, like all of this time that we've been talking about, like the entirety of it, the vast majority of Eve like had much more activity, and like your average player had more fun, right? Whereas today, like I feel like that's not like activity is like at all time low. I would think.
Almost. Yeah, this was a period of like 45, 50k peak
Right.
concurrent.
Well, it's one of those things where it was able to, you were still able to engage, like you engage, like at least for me, as I'm a CEO of a fairly large corp, I was able to engage my members a lot easier at that period in time in Eve, as opposed to now, where for the most part I have to kind of spoon feed them some content or get the FCs to do that, or they're off doing other things, like playing other games that they'll be around if things are happening. That really wasn't the time, the same at that point in Eve, which is kind of the sad part about it.
Yeah, it was,
Hey, Meridad, do you mind real quick? Matterall has to take off. He wants to do some shout outs, I think.
go ahead.
Oh, I don't have any shoutouts. I was just
What?
yeah, don't.
What?
You gonna leave?
Goodbye.
Come on, dude.
I'll join in, but I'll be on voice.
All right.
I gotta yield the room.
Yield or die.
That's
That's
why
no
you
problem.
don't have the TV and office. The TV room and the office be the same thing.
So you're saying
for
you're
real.
losing the fight. Well, best of luck.
Yeah. I lost it years ago. All right, I'll be right back.
It's okay. I got a great image for you loaded.
White brought up a great point as I went to go get waters, like how like the engagement factor back then, right? Like today, it's like
Okay.
I would say like one of the biggest differences between now and then is the ease to actually engage our alliances and our players, right? Back then, I could single-handedly engage our alliance, right? Like well, you needed one person, and I could move. Like I could just ping and move our supers across Eve, and like I could, like you had one person that could essentially do it all, right? Whereas now, you can't really do that, right? Like you have to rely on a lot more people, which makes everything, a decent size more difficult at scale to actually accomplish anything in. And whether it's logistics or moving your alliance around or just running a decent sized fleet, it's just a lot more involved, and it's much more difficult to do.
Well, and really, it's. I mean, and this goes back to the very beginning of this alliance. Like, it's harder for a bunch of nerd PvPers that all we want to do is shoot things, as opposed to, and I'll give credit to where credit's due. Like Goon's like infrastructure and their organization, second to none. They're a lot better set up in modern Eve than us or most anybody else can be. because we still rely on, even now it takes more dudes to do it, but it's still only a handful of guys that are for the most part organizing it and stuff like that, and it causes a lot of burnout, and people just bail on Eve, which is the unfortunate part about it.
Yeah, I did that for a year.
Yeah, we moved into a period here in Eve after the Fountain War where one pilot through drone assist could literally be the whole fleet.
Oh god, drone assist. Jeez.
Yep, it was amazing. Again, know what you're talking about?
FC's, it was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Drone assist, off grid boost.
We just drone assist on a FC Titan and have a blast.
So this was a period for players who weren't around that all of the drones you could assist. There was no cap. There's a cap right now, 50 drones per player, but you could have unlimited ships assigned to a certain character. So you could have 250 men worth of sentry drones assigned to one double target painting webbing ship, and it would just annihilate targets. Perfect alpha every time.
Yeah. So like back then in those days, right? The meta was slow cats, right? So that's basically a triage carrier and a Archon, or like a regular, I guess, fighter carrier in one, but it had you could use any type of drones, right? Fighters or sentries. So you have the remote rep aspect. So you have 250 carriers in fleet, which are like in NC. We got to the point where pretty much everybody was flying around in high grade slaves and X type hardeners. And they all had 2 capital remote armor reps, which are essentially like not today's equivalent of triage, but like they're, for the sake of argument, they're pretty close. And like they all had cap transfers, and you had drone link augmenters, so you could essentially just jump in and drop drones, assign them to the FC, and he could just trigger out to, I want to say 120 kilometers. And if you wanted to sacrifice a little bit of your reps, then you could make it 150 or so. Broken as fuck. Holy shit. That was dumb, but that was fun for those of us who got to do it.
So after this, basically, we once that's about the time where, not too long after this, we had the big fatigue nerf to Eve, or to jump capitals. So it definitely had to change our culture a whole lot. So we had to start doing, I guess, a lot more kind of sub cap deployments and smaller capital points, and it just made moving capitals so much more of a pain.
So Wrecking Ball, I'm forgetting where BTEC-R falls around this period.
Yeah,
around that time.
Before the fatigue nerf.
I think it was called the Halloween War, I guess is what it
Halloween War, yeah.
Yeah, it's about the same time. So we had a couple. We were dropping 250 man Wrecking Ball fleets daily, basically just daring CFC and Russians and I think Black Legion was at the time. Who else was with them to counter drop us? They tried a couple times. It didn't work out. We were able just to completely dunk them. And then finally they, with BTEC-R, it was set up at the perfect, like for us, it was the perfect storm. It was like the worst timing, the worst, area. Just, we lost in the minute the fight started.
Yeah. So what happened on that is we were fighting against goons in pretty much all of Russia in the Amensia region for the most part, Amensia and Catch. We were in Amensia, Russians were in Catch, and then everybody else, like all of CFC, were in Curse. And then you had Black Legion up north hitting, what system is it? I want to say, whatever the entry to like Venal is, right? MTO2. So Black Legion was doing that. So like on a daily basis, like and that was time that Black Legion was like a pure USTZ alliance. So we timed it for our Russian time zone. So we would, like on the final timers of like that system, which was the gateway essentially to our rental empire, we would have to have like somebody in Russian time zone go and send people up to MTO2 to reset the timer for a week. So the way B-Star happened is it was the SOB dropped essentially in PL's staging system in B-R. And the same morning, nobody really noticed it for a while apparently. So Manny took a supercap fleet up to MTO2 to reset that timer while trying to online a bunch of TCUs, which was an 8-hour process back then. But then somewhere in that time, Russians figured it out and they jumped in and they started killing TCUs and started anchoring their owns all around system. So by the time our Super Cap fleet gets back, they've probably been out for probably 2.5 hours at this point at an absurdly early hour in the morning. So a lot of people are just tired and burnt out. But then for some reason, like goons decided to actually like log in their Supers and Titans and jump them on us, right? But so it's in Russian prime time. So, you know, we have everything on the field and they actually counter drop us. And then they started chanting down more Supers and Titans from Declan, and we kept jumping more in, and they eventually just out DD'd us essentially. That was BDSR in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, this is another exciting period of the game for me personally, but also for I know a lot of players who came into the game based on the news.
Yeah, I was playing back in 2006, and it wasn't until I kind of was off and on back then, but then I saw BTEC-R, I was like, oh shit, and I've been nonstop since then. So yeah, it's pretty pivotal, I'd say.
It was fun for like probably like I'd give it like a solid like 2.5 hours. maybe 3. Yeah, then it was terrible. Like after I lost my second Titan, I just went to bed. I want to say like I just lost 3 more while I was like by the time I woke up.
To go back to like
Wow.
and this kind of goes into the part we were talking about earlier with like just the insane amount of money that us and PL had. I forget like what our total was. It was close to like 1.2, 1.4 trillion, something insane, even in today's standards, insane amount of money to SRP. We pretty much just wrote a check for it, and it was paid off. Like it hurt, like no lie, it hurt, which is why we kind of got stuck having to do Botting Empire and stuff for a while. But it still was
Bot Empire, not botting. Not botting.
Yep. Bot Empire, not
There's a
botting.
difference.
Excuse me. Well, hey, come at me. But yeah, so basically, not a lot of. I don't think there's many. Can't think of another alliance other than CFC that could sustain that loss and not just completely crash at the time and just dudes walk away. Because I've been a part of alliances that the first big hit you take, they fold out.
Mm-hmm.
Which like Atlas Alliance, I was there from the very beginning with Atlas. I helped run that, and that was the fall of that, and it was a super powerful alliance for its day. So I think that was just a credit to, again, how terrible management we were, but we still found a way to get it done.
Yeah, I mean that. Yeah, I mean like that. Like in the Jordan regions, we had tons of builders, right? Like I want to say, so that happened in. That was like an early spring, I want to say, and like
That was January.
Yeah, that was January. So I want to say like starting like after that happened, I want to say I built like 30 Titans, and we had like a couple of other dudes. We were just cranking out Titans. Like everybody was so excited. Like it wasn't like a demoralizing event like for more than like a couple of days, right? After Goons went home, like it was back to like the good old time. Like we were logging in, dunking Russians. Brave had like moved in, so we essentially like we basically like how much QD did we give him? We gave him like 250 billion ISK to take catch, and then we ended up taking it for them still. And like that was like our farming empire. So like at that time, like it wasn't like we died or like anything bad happened outside of like.
Oh, you actually won we won the Halloween War after all.
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, we won it. But
I did not know you lost 5 Titans.
Yeah, we lost a lot.
yeah, like there's one dude in White Scorp that I want to say he lost 6 or 7.
Well, but at the point, like towards the halfway through, he was just handing his Titans out to dudes that had died to get in. So we, I think he lost 7, and then he had a bunch of reserves. So he, as the next day or so, we gave Titans out to dudes that were there, and then we just built him new ones.
Yeah. Wow.
He's actually the same guy who bought all the beers in FanFest. Actually.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Does this guy have a name? Like he sounds like a legendary individual.
Drunken one.
Yeah, his name was Drunken One in the game. He didn't really play anymore, unfortunately. But he's always have a place in my heart.
When they say he bought all the beer for the people at FanFest, that means everybody at FanFest got a beer, and I think that was like tens of thousands of dollars.
It was a good chunk of money. I'm not gonna lie.
This guy deserves a bigger spot on the monument.
Oh, I 100% agree. 100%. Like I was saying
Also,
earlier,
Needs his own monument.
Lady Scarlet has a good BTEC-R story too. When you guys are finished,
I am done. I'm done talking about BTEC-R unless you guys want to have go on more. Yeah, it was what 3,500 beers, I think so.
wow.
Jeez.
But it
What
the
was
weird-
my story?
Cutie, your module-less Titan?
Oh, yeah. So, I don't know. I was like Titan number 7 to die after jumping in. And I got on a couple of kill mills, but, unfortunately, every single mod did not show up on my Titan when it died. So everybody thought I jumped in with no modules fitted.
Yeah, same. That happened to like all of mine, I think.
Mind you, I probably had the most expensive Titan at the time on the field.
Yeah, that fight
What's
test.
it?
Sure. Yeah, you would prove it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I
Prove
can't
it.
prove it. That's a thing. But you know traffic, and like his spending, habits and stuff. He helped me fit that, and it was probably like around 145, 150 billion at the time.
I don't trust you after you failed jump too many times.
Too many times, twice.
That's the key to buying a Titan. You have to fail jump at least once, and then lose your mind trying to save it.
Mind you, the key was to jump into 900 goons as they're entering system.
Yeah.
So that was BTEC-R. I mean, if you haven't read all about it, there's lots of history about it. 82 Titans died that day, and nobody cared about the number of supers. Like, nobody remembers the number because it doesn't matter. There were 82 Titans that died in one fight.
Yeah, not a lot of supers died. Like they were just starting on supers when downtime hits. Like not a lot of supers died.
So let's take 2 steps forward here into a more positive time for NC. And you guys were instrumental in part of the downfall of the World War B or the Casino War. Depends what side you're looking at it from.
Yeah, World War B. I've never understood the Casino War part, but I guess I get it. Yeah. So
I can explain it.
I don't want to explain. God knows. Please. Yeah. So moral of the story is, I mean, it's like anything. You give a bunch of dudes a purpose to go and shoot somebody that they're not really like. We've never been friends with goons. We never will be. Like, it's just too much bad blood, and I think that's good in this game. I think this game probably needs more of that, where people just don't genuinely like the quote unquote goons. Like, I'm sure there's some really nice people in the Alliance, but whatever. They can go kick rocks. We'll shoot them as much as we can. So we just need an excuse to go shoot him, and the guy was willing to give us money and pay for things. So of course we're gonna go. So, but unfortunately, it just turned into this kind of steamroll effect. Yes, Poison Kevin was there. He shot a lot of things. Get wrecked. Sorry, he's like poking me. He's like up at 5 a.m. doing nothing.
Yeah, the problem with that war was that he gave out too much money, so there was too many people there. So they totally folded.
Well, you had to. I mean, obviously this is before Citadels, so even then, goons were so entrenched in the north that it was going to take an insane amount of people and an insane amount of money to go against that, because it is a lot of. I mean, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but for the main dudes running the daily fleets and just organizing everything, that's the downside with this game. It's so much work that it takes a lot to get them up and to actually be willing to do it, to kind of grease all the wheels to get an alliance like PL and NC Dot and really all the guys like Darkness at the time, to get them all on the same page and just to get all the egos in the same room. It's amazing. I wish everybody had access to some of these wonderful channels. You'd probably all love this game and hate this game even more than I do.
Well, also the technology shifted, so you could combine people into the same room with Discord. That was new.
Yeah, back in the day, trying to do it all under Skype was horrible. But that's pretty much how we did it. That was the only way to really get around, or just to have to actually do stuff on comms, which, get in a room and listen to Pro God Legend screaming hell for an hour, you'll want to kill yourself.
Unless you brought enough interceptors or not enough dictors.
Like, I think dude's awesome, but man, he can get hyped over some stuff. But so did the whole goons thing, evicted that, which was a lot of fun. That was kind of when he was changing a whole bunch with all the new capital changes and stuff. So we got to experiment with a lot of stuff right at the start of it without really. It was pretty much risk free for us because goon supers were stuck.
Yeah, goons were less. We were less engaged on dropping our caps because we knew we were outnumbered. So
of course, and that's the downside. Like, this game has become such a word. It's for the most part, it's pretty obvious when there's going to be a big fight and when it's not going to happen.
And that was, unfortunately, it was kind of a clean sweep. I mean, there was a couple chances for big fights, but it didn't really turn out. Everybody kind of wanted that next BTEC-R and that next kind of big hype moment, but it never really manifested.
Well, Travis did come back at that time, and he discovered that Titans have an issue with shooting dreads.
Yeah. So like I was AFK for like pretty much all of the Halloween, or well, not the Halloween, whatever Casino War nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I'm logging in, and like I'm used to just like throwing my dick around, like, to be honest, right? So like I don't know what we were doing, but it was adversity. We were gonna try to like hot drop a goon move fleet, right? And like adversity like had like their supers in Syndicate, and we were in X70. We were just like waiting, I guess. And adversity's like moving their supers, and they took the what is this gate? They took the gate into Okagaiken from, I want to say, Cloud Ring, yeah. And then I just hear one of their guys say like, "Hey, there's a Sino up and like a bunch of Hectors landing next to us." So I've already bridged in like all of our subcaps into Tartogen, which is like kind of on the way, but we don't have a bridge titan in there. So like we just have to like start rage logging in all of our supers and titans. But they also get to do like this cool thing, which is like that they use the Capitals Knight used to not be able to do, which is taking a gate. So Bart, one of the dudes in my corp, just poked me. He's like, "Oh, we can just go one gate over and we can hit him," which I don't think goons necessarily realized when they dropped as many dreads as they did. So we just took one gate over. We jumped into Okagaiken. We lost a couple of rags, who I think all of them had the opportunity to actually upgrade to good titans, and yeah, we dumpstered a bunch of dreads. It was fun. I was happy. It was a good day to be back. I didn't actually. I was playing on a MacBook for that, so I didn't actually like aggro anything. I'm not gonna lie. Like I just signed out in and just started like broadcasting shit and approached the gate and hope I didn't get scrammed and die. I had like no overview or anything. Like it was like all purple titans on my overview. It was a mess. I set up my overview after that.
Just basic overview? Oh god.
Yeah, details.
CC, please.
I came halfway through. Like, unfortunately, that was one of the days I came home halfway through it, going like, "Wait, what are you doing?"
we still like broke. I want to say we almost broke even. And nah, I don't think we did actually.
But whatever. It was rags. Nobody cares.
Yeah, it was rags. Exactly.
Unfortunately, this game has gotten to the point now where like most of us, and this is the, again, problem of being so old in this game, is that we've all lost like kill ward stuff. Like it really is irrelevant. I don't even know how many supers and titans my corp has lost. It's just, it is what it is. Never gonna come back from it. We lost a rag to getting DD'd on our own Keepstar. Thanks, PK.
That's right.
Like, nobody really gave a shit. Like he just got a new one. Like people we have like there's like probably most of like the bigger FCs and NC dot all have like their main Titan. Like they all have like I think most probably have like a Vanquisher, Erebus, or Avatar. But then like we also all have like a Leviathan or like a Rag. That's just for like bridging around, which is,
they're more fun.
I mean that's a freeing,
a little more nimble.
That's a freeing situation, though. I know there's a lot of fear in my group as far as like losing a super or a titan and how that's going to have a negative morale effect. But you guys have gone through that already. You've moved past it. You know how to move, get into new supers. Like it's not a big deal, right?
Yeah,
it is. I mean, I think,
but not everyone.
That's the whole. I was going to say that's the whole part. So there's, as the game's gotten on, there's definitely a big divide even in our alliance, especially and I've fought this fight earlier today on a wonderful post I made to my alliance. So I'm still getting those hate mails. That basically there's a group that have been here for a long, long time, have decent enough money reserves, they can kind of do what they need to do, and there's the dudes that have been playing the game for 3, 4, 5 years, and they're still trying to catch up, which is not a bad thing. But as an alliance, for better or for worse, we don't care. It's either get it sorted and get whatever mods, skills, ship you gotta have, or honestly go join another alliance. I don't mean it meanly, but it's just, it is what it is. Like that's kind of what we expect as an alliance, because we have to be that way.
That's interesting. When you talk about modern times, when we finally get to it, it is interesting because we've picked up quite a bit of new players. So there's kind of a cultural shift.
Yeah, let's talk about modern, please.
Hey, Merdad, just real quick, we've gone about 90 minutes. Have you shown your nipples yet? I didn't know.
Oh, Lucian James doesn't need to see that.
Just saying.
There we go. Everyone's scarred. All right, let's talk about the modern times. So we're now in Modern Eve. You guys have the North, the East liberated from my poor dying corpse. goons are down south. I mean, the north is polarized. Kind of, there's nips and naps, and everything's kind of squaring off. Everybody's got their piece of space. Supers are being built everywhere. NC is growing. You guys are growing quite fast. I mean, there's with the CO2 Fail Cascade late last year, and I mean, a couple other corps, a couple other alliances aren't doing so well. LowSec is not seen as healthy, despite what YAR is going to try to push. A lot of groups have left LowSec to find NullSec, greener pastures. How is NC doing in the modern times? Talk to us about the the vouch kind of culture and how that keeps NC dot strong.
Yeah, because you guys took on Thorn from CO2, and then you took on. I mean, before that, it was. Oh, who'd you guys pull in?
Yeah, recently we've taken a bunch of corps on. To be honest,
we've taken. I'm looking at it right now. We've taken, I think, 9 or 10 corps since 2017, which is a lot, right?
Yeah. So bottom line is the game has just had a fundamental shift because, like I was saying at the beginning, everybody now can pretty much field the same type of stuff. They've got the same basic skill points. Maybe not the understanding or the nuances of everything is not the same, but it's still there's a lot more even playing field. And in this day and age, it's pretty much you either grow or you stop and you fall apart. So to not necessarily my happy place, but I think I kind of get drugged kicking and screaming by Lady Scarlet and Vince and even Travis to a point, is that we have to keep adding corps to kind of keep up with modern times. So we have taken on as other alliances have kind of fallen apart, then it's kind of we're gonna pick the groups that we think are the best from that alliance as they hit us up, because we're constantly turning away corps, constantly turning away just smaller mergers, stuff like we don't do corp mergers in our alliance, stuff like that. But it's if the corp's decent, if we feel they can actually add to us regardless of the size, then we're going to bring them in and give them a shot. Doesn't always work out. If it doesn't work out, then honestly we cannibalize the corp and they go go rent space somewhere or do something else.
Yeah, so I mean, as far as like you're saying, if they have what it takes, what does it take to get a corp specifically into NC?
For the most part, and Travis and Lady can kind of comment on it. It's a lot of it's just actually having a fundamental understanding of Eve, actually being able to field. For us, a lot of times we try to find corps that are going to plug holes in time zone issues that we have. Like we took one of the Spherica Corp, which is like a really kind of early EU time zone. They're small, but they're all really active and they're all really tight-knit corps. So it's great. It plugs a spot for us that we needed help in. We've recently taken a bunch of US time zone corps because again, it helps us in US time zone. EU time zone we don't really have a problem in. So US time zone we were kind of weak. Dudes have kind of gone off riding bikes over the last year or two. So we plug in some corps there to get it better. But supers and titans is not necessarily the big thing for us. It helps if those corps have a lot. But really, if they have any active FCs, Ben, who was on here a little earlier, that's one of the reasons he's in the alliance. Lucian James, those guys, they have some fairly well-known players that we'd like having in the alliance, and it helps us, and it helps kind of the newer guys get back into Eve. And it's, from my outlook, I'm trying to find anything that will encourage dudes to log in and play the game, because that's my biggest concern about my alliance, my corp, and just this game in general is. There's not always something for people to do.
And I have to agree. I mean, basically it comes down to, do they fill a need that we're looking for?
I mean, we're at the point now where we've got a lot of supers and titans. So if they have more, great, but we're not like, oh my gosh, we need another 50. Like, it is what it is. We'll get them titans and supers. Like, again, everything. So the meta's changed so much now. It's just if they have active people that will be logged in and will actually help scout, help run fleets, help do logistics, whatever we kind of need. If they've got active people that are helping, then great. If they don't, and I'm pretty ruthless in this, like as I check corps, and if they're not kind of pulling their weight, then they get to have a conversation and they get to usually go do other stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, speaking as one of the, a member of one of the newer corps that kind of got recently accepted in NC Dot, I mean, Mamba in general and a lot of the new corps just kind of have like a love of PvP, which I guess touches on what maybe NC Dot used to be kind of like, or maybe still is. There's not a whole lot of mining or you could say PvE side of things over here. So just speaking for that specific thing, it works out.
It's just that new blood aspect, which is what I like dislike sometimes, but I like is that you get people that are still excited and enjoy the game, and it kind of I've got a bunch of bitter vets in my corp, so it gets them excited when they see dudes that are out just shooting stuff in random roam fleets or whatever. So like I've got a Mexican guy, he just loves to log in and go shoot stuff, and he'll lose stuff left and right, but he doesn't care. So he's really excited to play the game again because corps like Mamba and around.
Because I mean, like, because there's really two types of corp. Or like, I mean, you have corps like Mamba, and then like you have like that are probably going to be like successful in NC dot, and then you have other corps which are. I mean, I would say like it'd be something that would poach from like something like CO2, right? And CO2 was never really like I would say like a full blown PvP alliance. So like a lot of their corps like. They logged in and they were in CO2 so they could just rat, and like they don't want to do anything. So like that's the thing we always have to look for. I mean, you can look at like any of like a lot of the corps in NC dot, and when they joined, they would be like a lot of the corps were the size of White's Corp, right? Like a couple hundred people. But like when you join NC dot, and like you understand that it is a very, very PvP focused culture, that's just not for a lot of players. So that's a lot of players drop off when bigger corps that have not been in this type of culture initially join.
And this kind of goes into what you're earlier with the vouch stuff. So even when individuals join the alliance, it's much more of a like we're not gonna babysit people. We're not here to. And this can be translated into elitist, but I'm okay with that. It's that I'm not here to teach somebody how to light a Sino or how to jump through a Titan bridge, stuff like that. You're expected to know that when you're here. Because usually it's.
Yeah, and also you think it's 2018. If you can't figure out how to Google or YouTube some sort of question to figure out how to do something, you're probably in the wrong fucking era.
I 100% agree there, and that's kind of the point. So the vouch part tends to be, okay, is this person a legitimate person? Is it somebody you've flown with? Is it somebody who knows the basic mechanics of the game? And if they don't, then okay, we have somebody to go back to and say, okay, why did you vouch this? Why did your corp vouch this person in? So it gives a lot more accountability. So you're not just going to necessarily invite everybody. You talk to a guy in some public channel, and he thought he said a funny joke, so I want him to be in my alliance. Like that's not. We're okay. We don't want that here.
Also, I just wanted to clarify that when you said a Mexican guy who's out losing stuff, that we're not talking about Matterall, right?
No, we're not. No.
I just wanted to check that.
Yeah, that's a different Mexican guy.
The worst part is my guy's not even Mexican; he's Argentinian. But
Matterall has to log in first.
We've beat him up over the years calling him Mexican, so he's just he claims he's Mexican anyway.
It's just easier for everybody.
It is.
Okay, so theoretical. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, sorry, one other thing before you move on, if you're moving on, the other thing that's interesting is the culture. The stability of the culture is what's really impressive, because when you're taking on new groups, everybody's got their own style and stuff. Like I think we had Adversity in for a little while, but I don't know why they left, or what reason was given, but they clearly took over the forums and crapped all over them. And Vince comes in and just crashes down on him. And that kind of stability allows the ecosystem to kind of stay relatively healthy.
Yeah, I mean that is very true. I mean, like we have a very, very stable leadership structure, I would say, for the most part.
Well, and a big part of it is that honestly, it's like there's a lot of really smart people in the alliance, but for the most part, they're kind of there's four of us that run the alliance, for lack of a better word, and I think it works that way. And there's stuff I don't like. Lady Scarlet runs a lot of stuff that I don't want to have anything to do with. I know I don't have anything to do with it, and I don't ever want to, and it works that way for us. So we get along with it. Well, we've all known each other at this point for
10 years.
It's unfortunate to say how long it is, but it is what it is.
Yeah, like we organically, like none of us really chose, I think, to get us where to like the leadership structure that NC dot essentially has, but it works, and it's very like it's all very, very well balanced, and it's worked for a very long time. I joined this
alliance not to be in leadership because I did it in Atlas Alliance and didn't want to ever do it again, and then here I am like 10 years later. So whatever.
So I wanted to propose like just a neutral character, somebody coming out of wormhole space, no affiliations to any nullsec group, has no predisposed biases, has a bunch of money, is willing to get into anything, and they're looking at the buffet and nullsec corps out there. What's the alliance draw that pulls in someone to NC over a similar corp in your coalition, or a different corp in, say, Goons, or any other group? What's the cultural pull that is going to draw someone into NC?
I think for us,
PL
versus like PL, I think for us
versus anyone.
I'll speak on my side. I think a lot of it is just is that we're still, I don't agree with it, but we're still treated as the opposite of Goons, or the opposite of like this other side, and we're kind of the poster child for it, which I'm fine with it. But I think, and it's still kind of treated as we still use big things, we still spend a lot of money on stuff, and we, more than maybe some alliances do. So I think that still is intriguing to players, to guys that are just getting in the game, or like you said, have all of a sudden got a bunch of money and they want to actually go do something different. But there's also, that doesn't necessarily mean just because they got money they're going to get into the alliance. So they have to have this kind of pull from other members or whatever, because it is a very it's a very kind of strict fraternity of dudes that are here for a reason. And there is a lot of, it's just a lot of kind of organized or grouped mindset in the alliance.
Yeah, and I think another thing is like you're going to be in, some point in time, Goons did this thing to like kind of trivialize and like make us look at the bad guys. They made like the whole elite PvP thing, right? That like came from Goons, right? So like there's also like the stigmatism that you're flying with like some of the best. Like, and I would say like our average player is probably a little bit better than like most other players in the game. Right, we have more better players like per capita than most other alliances. Like between NC Dot and PL, like our FCs, like they simply outclass by far any other alliances in the game. But and like that's a draw, right? And it's known for you're joining an alliance that's known for PvP, whereas Goons more or less, again, I mean they don't necessarily want to play that fun.
They inhabit Eve. Like, I mean, again, I'm not going to dunk Goons for their mindset. Is like they inhabit Eve. They do all the aspects of Eve, which is a draw for a lot of people. My guys in my corp don't want to go rat typically. They don't like, I have to force them to go do things like that if I wanted to do it. So I think that's a very different idea.
I think if you're looking as a new player at who do you want to join kind of at the elite levels, if you could kind of think of PL as Spartans, I think NC would be either Athenians or Romans. They're a giant wall of dominance kind of that comes in and stuff. So if you're looking at the type of place you want to join, I think that's a good way to think about it. And also you get a spectrum of activity from small to large. We do the largest things, and we sometimes do the smallest things, small skirmishes, stuff like that.
And I'll also say, I think and this is something we've worked really hard on, is that we've got multiple time zones that have we have some SCs that cross over and dudes that cross over, but it's not just, okay, everybody's gonna do one thing in US time zone or just EU. Even like Aussie time zone, we got a really big Aussie time zone. So that's a huge draw for that time zone player, which I think a lot of alliances just don't have.
Hey, Lucian James here. I don't want to argue I'd hate to argue the Roman analogy too much, but there were a lot of Romans, a ton of Romans, and they could just overwhelm everybody. I don't know if that's necessarily our thing, where there's not a whole shit ton of NC. I think we're more like, some like ninjas from like back in the day. Just a whole gang of ninjas that come up and like yank your shit and stab you in the fucking dick and run off.
Like Chris Farley ninjas?
I'm thinking Romans
too. I mean, hey, some of us that sit in front of the computer too long, Chris Farley ninjas.
Sure.
What about?
Well, and it's a wall of dominance coming at you, and it's formed up, and it's got shields, it's got armor tanking, that sort of thing.
And I can say I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask Beppe and Windjackal, kind of newer guys today, and see if they agreed with kind of these analogies.
I mean, yeah, kind of like where like White kind of touched on. I'm not going to make a dig at any other alliances really out there. But at least what I've found so far in NC Dot, and it's kind of shared by most of the corps here, right? Like you log in to play this game to go out to go shoot stuff. And if you can bypass the ratting or mining, you don't log in. That's not personally, right? That's not the fun part of Eve. It's not why I personally play this game, and it's not why a lot of other people here play this game. So you just have a lot of people that kind of mirror that, and it works out really well when you kind of have all those like minds that kind of push for that PvP lifestyle. And that stretches anywhere from, you can kind of get some of the, like a player like I can get kind of some of the larger fights in the EU side of things, and then I can later on in the evening kind of get some of the small skirmishy, small gangy stuff in the evenings.
I'll take a dig at those other alliances. No, when I started EVE, I kind of started back in that 2006 through 2009 era that were the foundations of NC. And so I got to live through a lot of that era that we heard in this history hour where, they were the predominant power. They could move across even an instant. You kind of had to live under that threat no matter what you're doing. And I kind of been bouncing around alliances all through my EVE career, trying to always kind of move upward. And so I think I've gotten a wide range of experiences, and I think NC by far is one of the best organized, and it's got a better average skilled player as far as game knowledge, game mechanics, and actual skill points. And then the FCs are obviously top quality material.
All right, I wanted to get 2 more topics in here before we reach like freaking into 3 hours or some crazy number. I want to briefly go over renting. I mean, you guys are strong in the north. You got your areas of rental empire. How is that structurally and foundationally an important part to NC now?
Only Lady Scarlet can answer that question. He's the only person in the channel that
you guys are
actually
doing
doesn't
so well.
Yeah.
Really want me to answer? You guys are doing really, really great.
My eyes glazed over. He started about renting him. I went into seizure.
Good night, White. No. It is important because obviously, it helps fund what we do, right? And you guys were asking a minute ago, what is a draw to NC? Well, NC invests in our members. It's not unusual for Vince to go out and buy 400 Max or 300 Rocks or, decide to hand out some kind of mod or something, and you cannot do that without an income, right? And so it's a very important part of what we do.
And for someone who isn't strong enough to get into NC, I mean, there's always, you can buy your way to the top, right?
Well, I mean, everybody can go rent space, obviously. We don't use it necessarily for a recruitment platform. As most groups know, it's a great way to get spies in. So it's not like our first go-to to build up our alliance. But I mean, for somebody who wants to get started in 0-0, it's a great thing to get into. It gives them a taste of what goes on in 0-0, and then they can go from there.
If I may, I'd say for Thorn joining NC from CO2, a big part of it for us was the bitter vet part, honestly, is to have a whole bunch of people around who can do what we do, dual box, sometimes triple box, whatever, have like any ship, pretty much at least capital and under, right? Any ship that you need, any one of our tunes to fly in game, we're all, bunch of old fucking Billy Goats at this point, so we can fly them all. And at the same time to use them with people who are smart enough, talented enough to not just, throw them out there all stupid, but to actually make meaningful contributions to smashing people's like Goon's face in. So, NC certainly satisfied, those appeals for us. And to be honest, for a corp like Thorn with someone like me in it, there are very few alliances who want us, and there are very few places that we would want to go left in this game after having been in it for 10 years. NC literally offered both a whole bunch of old school that we people that we've been playing with and have a lot of EVE history with, and then again at the same time, these are such well skilled and well talented people that you can have them in your fleets, like when you're at sea, or you can be in fleets and just see the coolest stuff happen because almost nobody messes up. And in the for example, the rock battle at the Fortizar the other day, It was just perfect. It's just great how well we execute this fleet. There was one fuck up where somebody boosted the beginning half of our fleet off away from the rest of us. We managed to end up warping that second half that was lost off, getting everyone back in an Astra house, and then boom, right back into the fight of like. But that's like the one mess up in like an hour. And it's just, you know, and then being able to just mop the floor with your enemies because we're on it so well with such cool people. I mean, who wouldn't want to be in a place like that? Regardless as to where you're from or how bitter you are.
And I mean, Lucian's a prime example of my last point, which I kind of wanted to roll through, which is NC, unlike where PL was a year and a half ago, it seems like there's a trend towards notable, strong, good FCs, popular players moving to NC as their place and their home as a community of experienced players. Is that what you guys are seeing? Are you actively trying to recruit that way, or?
To a point, yeah. I mean, there's always a concern with the community and how it can interact with each other and how we grow it. But the other side of this coin is honestly like for the most part, like Vince, Travis, Lady, and myself, and several of the main FCs, we kind of have a vision, and Corpse and dudes are either going to come in the alliance and kind of get on board with that vision, or they're not going to stay around, because we do have a tendency to kind of shed Corpse and shed people over time. So we want to foster a good relationship with everybody and the culture, but also to a point where we're not going to bend to it or maybe change. We're kind of stuck in our ways a little bit.
Well, it's stable leadership is what that is.
I mean, again, I think it's good and bad. So, I mean, I'm far enough removed from it to understand there's things that we do have to edit and change sometimes, but it's also kind of our way or the highway, I guess.
If you join NC. We will show you the way.
I gotta say, Lady Scarlet is a great CEO and very, very fair. And that means like she doesn't have favorites. So I get clobbered just as much as anybody else in there, as you can see. But same with that White Arrow, and I think Vince, all these guys are really, really fair. So it feels like if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you shouldn't have any problems at all. And I think that's what's great about it, because you can kind of depend on that clarity.
Yeah, it takes a lot to get, at least for me, it takes a lot to get me to that point where I'm done with somebody or done with the corp. But once we're there, like, it's over.
Okay, we've covered the past, we've covered the present. What's the future of NC. Is this a Cold War we're living in? Are we going to see a big war? Are we going to see a lot of supercaps die? What's the future here? What's the next year of NC?
I would love to say yes, that there will be a lot of supercaps die. I just don't. I have concerns that the game doesn't really foster that environment. Because honestly, what's the point? And it's a pain to move. Like there's a lot more speed bumps in the way now than there probably was 2 or 3, 4 years ago. But I hope so. I'm happy. I'm ready for it. My body's ready.
My body's ready. It'll probably be the war that kills me, but
yeah, I think at least my dudes, most of them are just once that big fight happens, they can finally lose that last faction Titan or faction Super, then kind of check that off the list and bounce out of Eve. So maybe that's why CCP keeps putting these roadblocks in front of us. I don't know.
We'll see.
But yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's like anything. There's still going to be, as the game grows and as people kind of get set in their ways, one side or the other will kind of give up on having this stable environment. It'll probably be us because we're too ADHD to keep going on the same path, and we'll start doing something else that pisses off enough people.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Try do that this year with taking on everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, exciting. I look forward to it. Do we have anything else you want to cover briefly before we jump into Eve Meets?
Yeah,
I do real quick. Can I throw one thing out? I do believe Lady Scarlet's running for CSM. So
yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
If we give
maybe.
Maybe nothing. You're doing it.
I just announcement here.
There it is. It's public.
It's Mind Clash official. Yeah, that was actually one of my last questions. If anyone is going to be running, so Lady, are you running?
Thinking about it.
Well, we would do Vince again, but he's just gonna get kicked off, I guess, this time. So we're gonna do ladies instead. It's a way better idea.
Exciting. All right. Well, we got some Eve meets coming up. If you like Eve nerds, not always bad people out there, but you can meet some nice, cool people. Charlotte, North Carolina Eve meet. I think you can meet the guys from Declaration of War down there. That's on January 20th. Eve Melbourne meetup. I don't know if that's a monthly meetup, but that's on January 20th as well. Tomorrow, Tuesday, is the Vancouver Eve meetup, monthly Eve meetup. You can see me there and all the other nerds, mostly Iron, because we all recruited at the same corp. Hilarious. We got a Des Moines, Iowa. No, that's not Iowa.
The S is
Des Moines?
silent. Des Moines.
Des Moines. Whatever. Come on. English. Hard.
Really, Des Moines? Come on.
Shh. January 26th.
It's French.
He's French Canadian. What does he know?
No, I'm not. We got
Just
another
say corn nerds. Just corn nerds, Iowans, Nebraskans, they'll show up.
corn nerds. We got a January 27th meetup in Arlington, Virginia. And then there's Eve Breckenridge in Colorado.
Just said Breckenridge. Is that where it is? Breckenridge,
Yeah.
Colorado?
It's
Yes.
Doom Chinchillas meetup. It's a skiing meetup.
God. Steer clear of that one.
What? He's good people? Go hang out with Doom?
He is a troll, but he's a nice guy in real life.
Maybe.
All right, let's get into some shout outs. Let's start at the bottom. Win Jack.
I mean, I don't really have any shout outs other than, I guess, to Mamba. It's been my corp for like 2 years now. The corp I've been in for 2 years now. So it's, I don't know, it's been a wild ride. Gone from culture all the way to here to NC Dot. Had a ton of fun, but I'm happy to see what the next couple years have ahead of us. Assuming this game lasts that long.
Oh, it's not going anywhere. White Arrow.
I mean, really just NC Dot in general. My boys. Yeah, it's been a fun ride. So we'll see. Hopefully we've got another. We've been alive, 8 years now? 7 years? Hopefully we got another 7 more in us. I don't know if I have another 7 more in me, but we'll see.
There's no shame in trying. Travis.
Well, obligatory fix for life, obviously. Can't go without saying that. UDI #1. What else do we have? I guess on a more serious note, it's like, I've been more pleased with like the new corps that have joined than any other previous batch of corps. So I guess we've got that going for us. That's nice to have.
Good growth. Best growth. Matterall.
Oh, I'd like to shout out to my corp mates, especially Desas, who saves my ass all the time, Krull, Tiberius, who's like my brother in Eve, and of course Lady Scarlet, who organizes us all.
And seriously, if you're not watching any of Matterall shows, please check out Talking Stations. Probably the best podcast out there on the Eve community. I mean, if you found us, you've probably found Talking Stations.
Second best.
Lucian.
Well, I'd like to give a shout out to all those guys that end up showing up at the Des Moines meetup. Those dudes are hung. Hey!
Beautiful lady.
A shout out to all my corpies. Love you guys. And to our resident horse jockey. Thankfully hasn't disbanded this shit show yet. But yeah, just hey to everybody in NC.
Beppe.
Shout out to Macabre Bottom. Bunch of really cool dudes. And shout out to rest of NC.
Yars?
Got to give the obligatory shout out to the rest of the Alliance mates, especially Sliv and Skyhawk for telling me how D-Scan worked properly the other day. Panic Attack is recruiting, and low sec PvP is not dead.
No, it's not at all.
I got faith in you.
You can't kill what's not dead.
Hey, Kale, big shout
yeah.
out to you, though. It's cool that you host.
Thanks, baby. I miss going on roams with you, man. You're the best.
Are you still blue? Where are you at?
I'm with GOTG, so I'm kind of bluish.
I was thinking of doing a blue Friday Night Lights, man. Did I schedule all of you?
I'll fucking do it.
Sorry, Lord Servant, who dropped in here. I was going to give you a chance here, but
Shout out to Sweden for PK. Fucker.
Okay, Sweden.
I'm surprised no one shouted out Hot Pockets, the official food of NC.
Oh yeah, where's Nerf, Mr. Hot Pocket himself?
Shout out the United States of America.
Yeah, it's literally care about. He's digging for oil.
All right. If you are first time listening to this show, brought to you by NC, thank you for joining us. We're here every Monday night, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. We cover different topics every week. This week was NC, and last week was Incursions. Next week, probably be a little bit of lore and a little bit of the summit, if there's anything to cover. But we're always open for new topics. If your specialty is something that's unique or interesting, we'd love to hear from you and your small corp mates. You don't have to be a high-profile leader of a major alliance. You can be the cool guy who runs that niche project in the back of your alliance, and you want to tell some people about it. We'd love to have you on the show.
I think this is the first time we've done an entire episode, especially 2 hours, just on an alliance or an entity,
Sorry, we like to talk a lot. My bad.
No, I mean we've never had that topic, but this is something we've thrown around for a while because we just kind of like the way you guys do things. So that was interesting, fun.
Time well spent, boss. It's a quality alliance.
Yeah.
So if you are listening live on Twitch, you can find us on podcast on the Eve Podcast RSS, on Crossing Zebras on their RSS, or on the Mind Clash Podcast RSS out there on any podcatcher which you can think of. You can also watch us on YouTube. We get the video version up there. It's slightly unedited, but available on YouTube. Look for the Mind Clash Podcast on YouTube. You can follow myself, Kale, and the show on on Twitter. All of our Twitter handles are there. And if you would like to support the show, you can through Patreon and through subscribing to the show. It's not required. We'll still be here, but we would appreciate it nonetheless. We'd love to give back to the community, form of merch and stuff. So,
yep. And since Murda didn't want to give me a shout out,
it's coming up.
No, it's fine.
It's right now.
I just wanted to make sure that we said happy anniversary to Rix and Lilu. Rix, Javix, and Lilu have been married for 8 happy and blissful years. So congrats on that, and many more to you.
Not CCP Lilu.
No, not that Lilu. Lilu 5? Lilu 5, I think. Big bada boom Lilu.
Kale, your shout out, please.
No, I don't want to now.
Fine. You'll be here next week.
I'll be here.
Alright, shout out to my alliance for holding the fucking soda during my show. You motherfuckers. Alright, and thank you all for watching. We'll catch you next week. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you then. Fly dangerous.
Thanks for having us.